Hello and welcome. I am so excited to spend this time with you. We are going to be talking about how to choose the best eating plan for you, right? For you individually. And I'm going to let a few people join us. Hello, Margaret and Danielle. Awesome. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Pam Bartha and I am the founder of Live Disease Free and the author of Become a Wellness Champion. And I'm really excited to spend this time with you today, helping you to understand what type of an eating plan is best for you. There are so many different types of eating plans out there. There is vegetarian, there is vegan, there is Whole30, there is ketogenic, there is even carnivore. I actually have a friend who's for the past, I would say, few months has been eating nothing but meat. And so how do we know what is the best type of eating plan for us to follow? This talk that I'm going to be sharing with you today is really for people that are suffering with chronic disease symptoms. Maybe you have a disease label, maybe you're just dealing with symptoms and you don't have a label yet, but things like digestive issues. So if you have things like constipation or diarrhea or gas or bloating, maybe you're dealing with things like depression, anxiety, maybe foggy head, you're having a hard time remembering things. And also you could have things like bladder issues or weakness in your legs and your arms, tremors. There's so many different types of symptoms that you can have that would be associated with infection. So if you've been following me for a while, then you know that what I teach is that when we have these different types of symptoms, they're caused by one of three main things. Number one would be infections. Number two could be toxins. And most of the toxins are coming from the infections. It's important to lay down this foundation for a minute. And then number three would be nutritional deficiencies. So most of the cause of all of our symptoms, those horrible symptoms we're dealing with, are coming from those three things. All right. And so we're going to consider that. So when we, let's say, go on a lot of antibiotics and then we really take care of that infection that was making us sick, but we also greatly reduce those good microbes, then we end up with these chronic silent infections in the body. And we're really out of balance. Our microbes are out of balance. And if you haven't followed me yet, I've got a ton of different videos on Facebook and on YouTube. Our channel is Live Disease Free. So make sure you go through all of them because you're going to learn a lot. So when we're trying to understand what is the best eating plan for us, then we have to really consider where our health is at. And I'm just going to take a moment to say hello to a few people here because I know quite a few people have joined us here. So hello, Rob and Lauren and Tammy and Margaret. All right. So what I'd like you guys to do is I would like you to post your questions in the question box. Before you even do that, I'm going to ask you a question. So some of you know of different types of eating plans. For example, if you have multiple sclerosis or chronic disease, you may have come across the Roy Swank or Dr. Swank's diet, the low-fat diet. Years ago, I bought that book. I still have it. And I tried that eating plan. And for those of you that don't know who I am, I was actually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 28 years ago. So I've been on this journey for a very, very long time. So back in the day, I bought his book and I followed that. So we have the low-fat diet, and nowadays we have the high-fat, the keto diet. And we also have vegetarian and we have vegan. And so what I want you guys to be thinking about, and maybe this is an advanced question, but I want to see if you guys get it. But when people follow any of these eating plans, and I would say a healthy version of these eating plans, because there can be a completely unhealthy version of any of them. For example, with the vegetarian, most vegetarians don't eat any meat. They could have eggs and they could have dairy. Some of them will have fish, but then we have a version of vegetarian, which is vegan, where they don't have any animal protein at all or any animal products at all. But when we're talking about healthy versions of all these eating plans, why would you think that people would notice a little bit of improvement right off the bat, whether it's low fat, high fat, vegetarian, vegan? Why is that? Type it in the question box because I want to see, because I know there are some wellness champions here. what's common to each one of those situations or each one of those different types of eating plans? I'm going to go down and see if you guys can get it. So why would somebody who eats no animal protein benefit when somebody who does eat animal protein benefit? And we're talking about healthy versions. So I'm not talking about a vegetarian diet where you're eating pizza, vegetarian pizza and vegetarian bread, but a healthy version of all these eating plans. Why would we all see symptom improvement? Let's see, can anybody guess? I have a really hard time running these comments. Yes, I think Victor got it right there. So the common factor with all of these eating plans is that they all require that you remove the processed carbohydrates from your eating plan. And so what we know is that, and through following me, you understand that with these symptoms, it's caused by these chronic silent infections. And most of those infections love processed carbohydrates. They love carbs in general, but they especially get a lot of immediate food from the processed carbs. So that is why that, there will be proponents that will say, vegetarian is the way to go because we see all these improvements. And people will say, well, carnivore, like just eating meat and nothing else, that's the way to go because we see these improvements at the beginning. It's because we're out of balance with our microbes and we're all reducing the food to those infections. So we're going to start to see things like a little bit more energy, right? We might feel that we're sleeping better. We may see that our bladder is improving. We might have a more clear mind. So that is true. But is there a better eating plan if we want to recover from chronic disease? And yes, there is. And that's been my experience. So I totally understand that some people follow vegetarian for ethical reasons, for religious reasons, for health reasons. And I do understand that some people like to go and follow the carnivore eating plan because they're trying to lose weight. I understand all of that. And I do appreciate the fact of how terrible we are producing our food these days, right? Many of you guys give me some thumbs up if you agree. They're using they are using factory farming type practices. So a lot of our produce, we're seeing that with our vegetables and our fruit, there is a decrease of up to 40% in the nutrients. And also the way that they're raising our animal protein, and we're using genetically modified organisms, and it goes on and on. So many of us are fed up with that. So some of us go towards a plant-based diet because we are fed up with the way that the animals are raised, and it's really hard. But the key is we have to understand it's affecting all of our food. But this talk today is not dishing or trashing any eating plan. It is just helping you to understand the differences between them and helping you to figure out what's best for you based on where you're at today. So as I mentioned, if you do suffer with any of those symptoms I mentioned before, and you're out of balance with your microbes and you've got to do some correcting, then yes, there is an eating plan that is the best that I have found. So as I mentioned, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 28 years ago. So I have done the low-fat diet. I have done vegetarian. I have done Mediterranean. And I have done a version of the keto, which is the nutritional ketogenic. And so what we've done is I have put together the best of everything into the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan. Thank you so much for all the love. I really appreciate that. I was going to mention too that if you know of people in your life that they want to lose weight, or they're dealing with brain fog, or they're tired all the time, they're sick all the time, or they have chronic disease, make sure to share this with them because it'll really help them to understand that actually the food they're putting in their body could be aggravating their symptoms. So in my 28-year journey of trying many of these different types of diets and eating plans, what I have found personally is that the best eating plan, if you're out of balance with your microbes and you have symptoms, is that you want to find an eating plan that, number one, feeds your body, lots of nutrition. That's super important. The second thing is you also want to feed the good guys. So we want lots of fiber because we want to build back that natural defense. We want to build back that ecosystem in our body, especially in the GI tract. What is their favorite food? fiber and a little bit of carbohydrates, but mostly fiber. So we want to have a lot of fiber. We want to have a lot of nutrition. And this eating plan, we want to greatly reduce the food to those infections that are making us sick. That's a big one. And why it's so big is because I see huge symptom improvements in my students that I work with. And this has been big for me because I am a high achiever and I don't have to follow this eating plan like my students do because I'm not dealing with the MS anymore. But I find I have so much energy and I find I can go so much harder. And for me, that's so important because I have a lot of stuff to do. I want to help a lot of people recover. So the key is that we eat in a way that we are feeding the body so that the more of the micronutrients that we're getting in, then our body can run properly. We're taking in lots of fiber for those good guys, building back that ecosystem in various ways, and then greatly reducing the food to the microbes that are making us sick, whether it's parasites, whether it's fungus, whether it's bacteria. Viruses are not alive and they don't eat, so we don't worry about them. We just want to build up our immune system. So that is the key. And the high nutrients also feeds our immune system. So when you take the best of all the different eating plans together, which is mostly plant-based, but adding in enough animal protein so that you keep your muscle mass and you have the energy and you have the clear mind, people recover a lot quicker. And then we include enough healthy fat so that we keep our weight on. For some of us, we don't want to, like myself, I don't want to lose any more weight. That is the premise of the Live Disease Eat Free eating plan. And I've shared more detail about that eating plan in previous talks that I've done. So when we're looking at the carnivore diet, yes, it can give you really good health benefits as far as if you want to lose body fat, it works really well. People will be on it for a couple of months and they'll lose a bunch of weight. They will lose body fat and they actually feel good and they have not decreased the nutrients at all because there is a lot of nutrition in meat, but it's not sustainable. That's the key. And what if you can lose that body fat, but keep bringing in all of the fiber? That's the downside of the carnivore diet, is that we have to focus on health. We have to shift away from losing weight, and losing weight is a benefit, right? For sure. But we want to focus on health. So if we can eat in a way that we still lose the 35 to 40 pounds in 2 to 3 months, but if we're able to feed those good microbes, which we're rebuilding that ecosystem, that gives us longevity. That is the key. Not just nutrition, but having the right microbes living in our body is really the key to having a very long and healthy and happy life. All right, so that's the downside of the carnivore. So you can still have the benefit of losing all the fat and losing the weight without decreasing the phytonutrients, the thousands of phytonutrients that are in plants, and just the flavor and the fun, right, of having more variety in your diet. And then with respect to vegetarian, yes, if you're a smart vegetarian, you can sustain the vegetarian diet for sure. But you do have to be aware, you have to monitor certain things. So there are people that eat this way for religious reasons, as I mentioned, or ethical reasons. Then you have to be smart. I know too many vegetarians that are eating a ton of breads and grains and starches. You're not going to feel well. You also have to monitor a lot of different nutrients because you can become deficient. It takes years to become deficient in B12, but if you do, you can start getting neurological symptoms, and that is not a good thing. Also, vitamin B3, also certain essential amino acids. So there's a whole list of things. So you have to do your research. You can't just go, I hate meat, I'm not going to eat it, I'm just going to eat no meat, because you will probably run into deficiencies. You can have anemia, which is low blood iron. Pay attention to how you feel. If you've been on a vegetarian diet for a few months and you're finding that at first it wasn't bad, but now you're starting to feel more tired, please listen to your body. That's what I really teach, is for my students to pay attention to how they feel. Use common sense. And if an eating plan requires that you take extra supplements because it misses certain things, you got to start to think, well, maybe I'm a little too strict. And that's why a lot of vegetarians, they will bring back the fish into their eating plan, because that brings in that DHA, which is the essential fatty acid that is such an important thing for your brain. And yes, you can convert, you can do some conversion from ALA to DHA, but it's a very, very low conversion. I just want to double check to make sure I covered all of the different things to be aware of there. So the DHA was really important, because that is 90% of the omega-3 in your brain is DHA. And when you're only having things like chia seeds or walnuts or different plant sources of ALA, the conversion over to DHA is very minimal. It's like under 10%. So you have to be very smart if you're going to be strict vegetarian. The big thing that I see is that if you have symptoms of disease, as I mentioned before, whether it's digestive issues, whether it's cognitive issues, foggy head, fatigue, headaches, it goes on and on. And then with weakness, tingling, numbness, neurological symptoms, all those things I shared are infection-based. When we want to treat those infections, they thrive on carbohydrates. So it's really hard to be on a vegetarian diet to lower your carbs enough to treat them as effectively as I like to help my students treat them. So yes, you can have health benefits from eating vegetarian if you're smart and you make sure you do not become deficient. It takes a bit of an art and a skill. And secondly, what I find is with my students that are dealing with chronic disease, when they decrease the carbs below 50 grams per day, and actually the sweet spot is more like 35 to 40, that would be the total grams of carbs per day. When they get their carbs down that low and they're still having all that nutrition and they're having ample protein, etc., they notice that they start to see huge symptom improvements. And then when we get to the killing phase, we notice that it's a lot more effective and easier to treat those infections, because by the time we have a lot of strong symptoms, we have parasites deep in our body, we have bacterial infections, not just in our blood, in our lymphatic system and inside our tissue, inside our central nervous system, inside of our reproductive areas. So they're in deep. So the key is that this eating plan is extremely powerful. To go over the general guidelines, as I mentioned, number one is we eat a ton of vegetables. So that would be at least 9 to 13 servings of vegetables a day. And there is another problem with vegetarian too, and it's all of us that are eating vegetables, not just vegetarians. But for us that are eating, we have to recognize that because we are picking the vegetables that you get in the big stores, they were picked a few weeks ago. So they were picked green, and they were harvested, grown in a big field where they're putting this fertilizer, which has a lot of heavy metals, and so the soils are depleted, the produce is picked green, and so there is that decrease in nutrition. And that's why the USDA is saying that we have to eat 9 to 13 servings of vegetables a day to get our nutrition. In the summer, please go to the local farms, get your produce local that was grown and vine ripened. There's a huge difference between vine ripened produce and what we're getting in the large, big stores. So the key is that with this, we're eating 9 to 13 servings, and it equals about 3 full platefuls a day. And then with that, we are having enough animal protein to keep our weight on, and also having that clear mind, stabilizing our blood sugar. You'll notice that when you add a little bit of animal protein in, your blood sugar becomes very steady, and you feel much more alert, and you feel much more just stronger inside. That's what I would say. Alert, strong, energy. And we also will, so it's the high vegetables, enough healthy protein, enough healthy fat to keep your weight on. If you don't include enough healthy fat, it's easy to lose weight. And this, I've talked about all of this before. I'm not going to go into great detail, but you want good quality healthy fats. We do not want trans fat. We do not want heated denatured fat. So extra virgin, right? Or organic, extra virgin, cold pressed, etc. Very little fruit in the healing and recovery phase. This is where very, very minimal at a first thing in the morning, 30 minutes before breakfast, but all by itself so that it digests and it does not ferment with the other food. very small amounts of certain nuts and seeds, because there again, if you eat a lot of nuts and seeds, you will feel horrible. So with a vegetarian diet, they rely on things like beans and legumes, and we don't eat that when we're recovering because those bad microbes love them also. And if we're not digesting them, then they are, and they keep us sick. So that's why it's very challenging to follow a vegetarian diet in recovery of these chronic silent infections in the body. But we still are following a very largely plant-sourced or plant-based eating plan. So the vast majority of my plate is vegetables. I just have a small amount, or just whatever I need to be satisfied, whether it's 2 or 3 ounces to just be satisfied. And of course, try to pick the most, I would say that the cleanest, most healthiest animal protein. So of course, organic is great and grass-fed is great, but some of us don't have access to that, and people still recover, just so you know. But just don't eat large amounts of fat if it is not grass-fed fat or grass-fed beef, etc. So you guys go ahead and share any questions you have about this in the eating or in the question box below. I just want to make sure that I've covered everything here. So one other issue with the vegetarian eating plan is that this is especially for vegan. So I've seen, and there's healthy and unhealthy vegetarian for sure. Just like there's healthy and unhealthy any eating plan. If we eat a lot of carbs, right, then that converts to sugar, and that can become an issue for our adrenals. That's another thing. So that's why we want to use common sense, and we want to use a well-rounded eating plan that provides. So I do know vegetarians that will include fish to get a little bit of extra protein and that wonderful omega-3. And then also other people that are vegetarian, I've heard, will eat liver, which I'm surprised, because you would think that liver would gross them out, but liver is so high in nutrients. It's super, super rich in all kinds of vitamins and minerals and nutrients. So that tells me that, it is important to include some of that in your eating plan. All right. I'm going to head over to the questions. Oh, before I do, I wanted to mention too that these are just some recent, like within the last week or two, successes that I wanted to share with you of students that are following this. So we have the Live Disease Free Academy. We have well over 70, I would say closer to 80 students from all over the world that are recovering from chronic disease. And I want to show you the power of what I see. So that's why the insights that I share with you, it's not just a single person that's like, well, this is what I've found in staying MS free for the past 28 years. No, I have worked with hundreds of people, and this has been a work in progress and fine tuning it, this eating plan. And remember, it's only the first step. There is no eating plan that is going to treat silent chronic infections. They will make them more quiet so that they'll be easier to treat. But there's a bunch of steps you need to do to bring back that good, healthy ecosystem that you were lacking. So Nancy shared. So Nancy's been with me maybe 2 weeks. She shared sleeping 8 hours or more per night, able to fall asleep right away and not getting up during the night. Great energy, able to take meals, to make meals by myself for the past, for at least twice a day. So she's somebody who has multiple sclerosis, and she was very, very weak, couldn't eat very much food when she started with me. But in 2 weeks, she's been able to start making meals for herself at least twice a day. So her energy is coming back that much. And she was able to go out and do errands all day during the day, had energy till late afternoon. This is a really big one that I want to share with you, is that a lot of women come to me and they feel they have these horrible menopause symptoms, where it's like these sweats that I'm getting, these night sweats and all these other symptoms, they're menopausal. And I said to her, it could be from the infections. That's what I usually see. So as you treat infections and you bring nutrition in, then we find that all these so-called menopausal symptoms go away. So she just shared with me, most of what I thought was menopausal symptoms are almost gone. And that's like in a couple of weeks. Drop foot and balance is beginning to improve already. And her husband has Crohn's disease, and he's doing really well with this eating plan. And that's just in a couple of weeks. So she hasn't started killing yet, but that's the benefits that she's noticing already. So Joe shared, and he's just been with me a couple weeks also. My bladder is improving and my GI function, so constipation, is becoming so much more regular. I've been sleeping so much better. My thoughts are more clear. And this is really early, but I wanted to share with you because it's wild and I do see this sometimes. So he shared, I have been feeling pretty okay. In fact, better than okay. I actually almost feel normal. And by normal, I mean that pre-symptoms. So he also has multiple sclerosis. So by normal, I mean pre-symptom normal with regard to dizziness and standing and walking. Huge, all right? And he just shared that. I think that was just on our call on Tuesday. Claudia, I'm thinking more clearly. My handwriting has improved and life is good. Lots of energy. Mood is unbelievable, always positive. I'm so grateful for everything and for this eating plan. I haven't felt this good in 10 years. So these are all people that are just in the prep phase. They're getting ready to treat infections. They haven't started treating them yet. Julia, I've been following this eating plan now for 8 days and I've noticed improvement in my left leg, which prior to starting the program was very weak and heavy. It doesn't feel as stiff and as heavy. This makes me hopeful that I will only get better. Another thing that I've noticed is my fatigue is not nearly as bad. So those are huge improvements just within 2 to 3 weeks of following the eating plan. And what I have seen in my students when we follow this eating plan, so we're greatly reducing the food to those bad microbes, we're feeding the body, we're bringing back the good guys, but we're also giving them lots of fiber, and there's a lot of steps to this. And then we're starting to treat those infections, starting to knock them back, right? Infection by infection. I have seen one of my students no longer needs a pacemaker. That's unreal. A couple of my students no longer need sleep apnea machines. None of them snore anymore. The snoring goes away because that's a buildup of infection in your sinuses. Usually fungus is the biggest underlying cause of that. So sleep apnea and pacemakers. And then we've had one student that had non-malignant called meningioma, a tumor in her brain, and that completely went away. Cancer markers improving in other people. And then lipomas, which are little other non-malignant tumors. One of my current students mentioned that they have reduced so much that the doctor's like, what is going on? Seizures stopping. One of the children, husband and wife joined the program, and Ken had MS, so they took the program for him, but they put the whole family on the eating plan, and they have a little boy who's 2 or 3 years old. No, sorry, he's a little older than that. Under 10 for sure. But he has neurological conditions and he has epilepsy. Through the eating plan, no more seizures. This eating plan is more powerful than medication for seizures. All right, it's huge. And then we see benefits like people's their vision improves and their skin improves. They get a healthy glow. So it's really anti-aging. So whether we use it to help us to correct our microbiome, maybe we are a high achiever and we really want to perform in life, whether it's with athletics or whether we have a passion that we want to follow. So whatever the reason is, or maybe we want to slow down the aging process. For myself, getting to 56 years old, I would like to slow that down, and I want to keep up with my grandkids. So that's the cool thing, is that it's the kind of eating plan that you don't have to supplement a lot because you're getting such a wide variety of nutrition. We do add in a few extra vitamins and minerals just because our food is so deficient, but any other eating plan would do that also. And in the summer, like I said, just buy local. That is so important. Purchase your food local, vine ripen. That's what I do once a week. I drive out to our farm, local farm that I trust them. They're not, the one that I use is they're not 100% organic, but like very, very close. And I trust them, I know them, and their food is amazing, their vegetables. And so I fill up my fridge. It's like pathetic. I'll share some pictures with you as soon as they're up and running again, because it's just beautiful and it tastes so good. You guys know what I mean. When you get produce from local farms, the flavor there's no comparison. And that means it's loaded with phytonutrients. And those phytonutrients help our bodies to fight infection and also just help our immune system to be strong. I'm going to head over to some questions if you guys have any questions. All right, so hello. We have Margaret. Hello, Margaret. And Tammy, hi. And Lorena, Rob, Rachel, Sonia, Oksana, Dominic, hello Pam, Victor. Yeah, Victor, you got the right answer. Margaret, Dana, hi Maureen, Rachel. You can't hear me. I don't know why. Everyone else can hear me, so I'm pretty sure that it's working. There will be a replay, so please go back to the replay. All right, Maureen, you can't hear me either. Okay, everyone else can. So maybe it's a technology little glitch, but you'll be able to hear me on the replay. All right, and Maureen, I don't see any questions here yet. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Aram and Joy. And Karen, you guys are just listening. Okay, see. Is it okay to have sugar-free chewing gum? If you would like to have some type of chewing gum, then go and get one with minimal ingredients, but xylitol is fine. So just make sure there's no aspartame. Aspartame is deadly. You do not want aspartame. And so xylitol, having it occasionally, make sure that they've put in some nice fresh mint or whatever, absolutely fine. Green beans are totally fine, Rob. So the yellow and green beans are fine, but just not the any of the dried beans, whether it's the pinto beans or garbanzo beans, like things for hummus. We wouldn't have that while we're healing. So we would not do hummus or garbanzo beans or any of the beans that we would use in chili, etc., or legumes or split peas. All of that you would want to avoid while you're healing, because all of the carbohydrates in those types of vegetables, they will feed the infections and they will slow you down, basically, and you will not recover like you want to recover. Sarah, once the bad guys are all dead, can vegans enjoy beans once again? So this is the key, is that once if you're sick and you treat these infections and you feel really well, you may be different then. You may say, man, I feel so much better now than when I was following a different eating plan. And listen to your body. You'll know, right? So what I've noticed is that, you can go vegan for a month or two without really knowing what you're doing, but then people start to have less and less energy. And so, for example, there's this beautiful lady online, and she'll say, have a quart, 4 cups of juice first thing in the morning, and then have a whole watermelon for lunch, and then have dates. There's so much sugar in all of that. I just don't understand. Like, honestly, if you try it, you'll see that maybe you can last for a week or 2 or 3, but you're going to find that you're not going to have the stamina that you had before. So what I always say to my students is, let's get you to a place where you feel really good, you have a lot of stamina, and then you have a base that you can judge other things against. And then you use common sense and you use, how do I feel, right? And when you feel super energized, then you crave it. It becomes addictive. Good question, Sarah. So Sharon, you are here. Way to go. Nice to see you. Patty, hello. Maureen. Yes, those are amazing results. And that's just, like I said, that's before we treat infections. And then when we're treating infections, this is where we see people's spasticity going away. We see that balance comes back. We have students that have come out of wheelchairs and out of scooters. This is where drop foot resolves. The exciting thing is that if you have some kind of serious chronic disease where you think like, my neurological damage is all permanent, there's a very good possibility that it is not. We're seeing that all the time. Some of it may be, but a lot of it isn't. So when you treat those infections, you stop the disease from progressing and you have a ton of recovery. And it's usually a lot more than people understand. And the reason being is that some of the disability that we're dealing with, the nerves are irritated and inflamed, but they are not permanently damaged. And if they're not permanently damaged, if that myelin sheath is not permanently scarred, then when we treat the infections and the inflammation goes down and then it heals, we have all this recovery in mobility and all kinds of other symptoms, cognitive, especially the brain. Sarah, okay, I don't know where that about that icon. Lentils, in the healing phase, Sarah, lentils don't work. Once you have corrected the microbes and you're feeling like $1,000,000, then you might want to test having maybe one day where you're, if you really want to do that, then having a day here or there where you're going vegetarian and see how you do. You'll notice very quickly. But the key is to first get to the place where you feel really well for months, right? Give yourself time. Treating these infections does not happen overnight. If we're treating, let's say, deep-rooted parasite infections, that will take months. It could take 6 to 12 months. And also Lyme, because these spirochetes, they go deep into our red blood cells, our white blood cells, our tissue, our lymphatic. And then also we know, and this is research that I've been sharing on my other videos, that if we've had these infections for a long time, they get into our central nervous system also. This would include people that don't have MS or neurological diseases. There are many people that have lesions in their central nervous system and they don't even know it. That we know that our brain is not a sterile environment, and I shared that on one of my previous videos. It has its own ecosystem of microbes. It gets out of balance, so we can have Lyme growing there, the Borrelia. We can have these nematodes I've shared on, which is a little parasitic worm, in our brain and in our spinal fluid. And it may be that you don't have a diagnosis. Maybe you're just feeling not well and feeling more weak, etc. So that's why it's so important to learn this skill about how to be the director of your health, how to manage those microbes, keep the bad ones down and keep the good ones up. And that's what I help people to do. If you're at a place where you're like, man, I would like to learn this. I would like to be one of those wellness champions that are noticing improvements with my foot drop and my balance and sleeping and my bladder settling down and all these symptoms going away, then please watch my masterclass training, which will be posted in the feed of this video. On that masterclass training, I'm going to teach you how we get out of balance, what the symptoms mean, how to correct it. I'm going to share a ton of case studies with you. And then if you're the kind of person that like, I want a game plan, I want to learn how to take care of my health, I want to reverse this, I want to get back to living, then you will be able to chat with me and you will be able to join within the next few days, actually. You'll be able to become a wellness champion as soon as you want to, all right? So make sure, number one, that you share this video with other people that are trying to figure out what to eat. Number two, make sure that you please continue to give love as we finish this off. I really, really appreciate it because it is unnerving just looking at a computer screen and at a cell phone screen, but I really appreciate all your love. And I know there are a bunch of wellness champions. And then number three, if you are ready to be a wellness champion, make sure to watch my masterclass training. I promise you that there is so much valuable gold information in there. People share with me, they're like, Pam, this makes so much sense. I've suspected that I've had infections for years, but I didn't know. Nobody's ever told me. I've gone to naturopaths. I've gone to functional medicine doctors. I've spent thousands of dollars, and they didn't know. They didn't understand. You have to learn this skill yourself, because when you learn this, then you'll know how to do most of the work yourself, save thousands of dollars, and make sure you never end up in this position again. So I'll answer the last few questions and then we'll be done. So what is my advice on alpha lipoic acid? There again, there are so many supplements. This was from Mary. There are so many supplements that you can take. And my students, we keep it really simple. So we can go into the whole field of mitochondrial dysfunction and genetic defects and on. But if you just go down to the root cause and you treat infection and you give your body nutrition from your eating plan, right? And that's why the Live Disease-Free eating plan is so great, because it is supplying all the protein. It is supplying all the B12. It is supplying all of the different vitamins and minerals and those core nutrients. And so I don't recommend taking all those different supplements. I've been there. I've gone to different integrative nutritionists and healthcare professionals. In our day, it was more naturopaths. I had a cupboard full of 15 supplements that I was taking, which didn't make any difference in how I felt. So if you're just focusing on treating things like mitochondrial dysfunction and treating things like the methylation defects, etc., and you don't focus on the infection, you don't get there. You don't get to the quality of life that you want. So if you have taken that and you say, oh my gosh, it's helping me right now, it's making a big difference, then you can take it. But if you've taken it and it's like, it's supposed to be good for me, but I haven't really noticed any difference, I personally would not take it. I would not spend my money on that. So Carmel, how do you get the eating plan? So the eating plan, just watch my free training. I give a lot more detail about it there. And this is it, if you just want to follow the eating plan, we are putting together a really great resource on just the eating plan. It's just in the works. It's coming. All right. And then also, if you want the game plan of how to correct your microbes, watch that masterclass training, because it'll teach you that plus everything else. Kombucha, Leanne, I would avoid kombucha because it is going to contain natural yeast. And all of you, and I know if you're the Leanne I'm thinking of, that you are one of the wellness champions. I just don't remember your last name. I'm pretty sure that's you. But when you have chronic disease, you do not want to bring any yeast, different types of foods into you or yeast byproducts, because although it's not the same yeast, it's not the yeast that's growing in the kombucha, it's not going to cause a yeast infection, but the yeast will benefit, the fungus will benefit that's in you. And remember, when we have chronic disease, we usually have more than one type of fungus growing in us, not just candida. Also, kombucha would be a sugar ferment. So when you take a bunch of sugar, and it's also tea, so there's caffeine, avoid it. So we don't want caffeine. We don't want to be fermenting a bunch of sugar. Number one, if it's not all fermented, you're going to get sugar, and that will feed the infections. Number two, when you ferment sugar, there will be more alcohol. Number three, it could have yeast products. So the only fermented foods we start with are, let me see if you guys can guess. See if there's an answer here. Raw sauerkraut. I know it takes a minute for it to come through, but maybe you guys will type in there. So raw sauerkraut is the only one that I find that is really well tolerated with people that have chronic disease symptoms. All right, so Megan. So will there be any videos on some of the herbs and the first steps in killing? That is something that I have to be careful with, because I'm talking to the world and there's so many variables and people are so sick. So yes, we can talk in a general sense about that in one of the future videos, but that is something that you really have to work with someone, whether it's a health coach, whether it is a healthcare provider, because natural herbs, killing agents, and other therapies, they can interact with medications you're on. Maybe you have a pacemaker, maybe you have some other type of condition, maybe good condition to be is pregnant. There's so many different variables, and when you get to the killing phase, you really need to know what you're doing. You have to have some direction, all right? So I can't just throw out a bunch of herbs, because number one, if you just start taking herbs and you're not following the other steps, you're going to say, it's not working. Why is it not working? It's because you're still feeding the infections. Maybe you're not taking enough. And if you take too much, you could hurt yourself. You could end up with a severe Herxheimer's reaction, flatlined on the couch and think, oh my gosh, should I keep going? Because maybe it's good. Maybe I'm killing these bad microbes. It's like, no, you'd never push through a Herxheimer's reaction. So the killing part is really something that is really individualized. Thank you so much for all the love. It really is. It's, you know, when you're dealing with these strong symptoms, you have to be wise. You have to be careful. So that part of it is probably, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I don't want to put people off on the wrong track. Thank you so much for all the love. And Sarah, cabbage, absolutely fine. But there again, when we're following this eating plan, it's really a good idea to track all your total grams of carbs for a day or two so that you make sure that you're down below the 50 total grams of carbs per day. But you would really like to keep the sweet spot for recovery of chronic disease would be closer to 35 to 40 total grams of carbs per day. But this is where, listen to your body. If you're under 50 and you're getting better and you feel good, great. And then if you're like, no, I want to ramp it up a bit. And so you take it down a little bit more and you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm really starting to see improvements, then that's what's good for you, right? Listen to your body. You know your body. You know what works and what doesn't work. So having the organic acai puree, which is a fruit, again, the natural sugars, especially when you're pureeing it, is not good. When you puree food, or fruit, you are pre-digesting that natural sugar, and it makes your blood sugar go up, and it feeds the infections around your body, your intestines, wherever it is, in your sinuses, and your breast, and your prostate, wherever it is. And then they're happy for the day. They're microscopic, they're invisible, they don't need a lot of food. So you do not want to be like, all my students are eating food in as close to its natural state as possible. We are not pureeing our food. We are chewing our food. When you chew, when you use your jaws and chew, what's happening is you are actually detoxifying your brain. You're opening up pathways that are detoxing your brain, which is a very good thing, especially the day that we live in, with all the heavy metals and the infections, etc. Last questions. Celia. So you have been bad and you've eaten a few sugary things. Yeah, not good. But you know, Celia, this is the thing, is that you learn, right? We learn. And what I found is that when people start on this journey, and if they have a fall, and not everybody does, but if you do, all you do is you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and I know you're saying to yourself, that wasn't worth it. I feel weak. It didn't even taste as good as I thought it would taste, right? But that is the key, is that if you can, build on your why and your intention. So going to, why do you have to be this? Why do you have to succeed? And make that super, super strong, then you're going to be stronger to say no, all right? And honestly, the longer you're away from the bad food, the longer, or I should say, the less you will crave it. But at the beginning, people crave the wrong foods. Yes, Sonia, way to go. This is a lifestyle change. All right, and that's what I've done. And that has been the key to my success. That is why I have lived 28 years free of multiple sclerosis. It's not because I cured myself 28 years ago. It's not because I was just, maybe I didn't have it. Oh no, I live this way. I was loaded with infection. I still manage those microbes. And if I hadn't have learned this, and if I hadn't have had MS, I would not be this healthy today, I'm sure, because I didn't know all these things. But because of the multiple sclerosis, it forced me to learn all of this. It forced me to study and study and study, and I'm a researcher. So if you're ready to be a wellness champion, make sure to watch that masterclass training. You'll have all the instructions. You'll be able to join us. You'll have a step-by-step plan to recover and to enjoy beautiful quality life. Very, very active. So with that, I'll be back again next week with, and I can't remember the topic. That is so bad. But anyhow, I'll be back here 5 o'clock Wednesday, and it will have to do with, I can't remember if it's buying local or something like that. It might have been, but it'll be more on the eating. All right, so with that, I'll see you next week, Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Take care and bye-bye for now.